What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a new episode of the Point After Podcast, episode 11. Been a little bit. Me and Matthew kind of got crazy, busy with different stuff going on towards the end of November and middle of November and all that. But we're back Friday night. Got a couple big games this weekend. App State plays Louisiana Lafayette today. I think that's the only Friday night game. I don't know about you, but I'm really looking forward to that one. We got Coastal Carolina and BYU, and then a couple good ACC and Big Ten games as well. Matt chose not to go with a video or a picture today. Instead, we're showing off our Christmas apparel that just came out. So we have the Respect the Raid design number 2 that no one has seen before, mixed with the TPA logo, the Christmas edition logo for you guys. So if you want to purchase any of that, just leave a comment on the video or send me or Matthew a message on social media, whatever. And then we also have some other apparel mixed in, like the Alabama and Auburn t-shirts. So anyway, Matt, how's it going, man?
It's going good, going good. It has been a while. As always, looking forward to getting the ball rolling. A lot of things to talk about, a lot of big topics, especially in the last couple of days that we have, discussed about talking about that we didn't have planned earlier in the week. But yeah, I'm ready to get into it. I think we're doing college and NFL combined, correct?
Yeah, we're going to do a little bit of a joint episode here, but like you said, we talked about this earlier in the week. We have a couple topics that we are going to maybe touch on, but it's just kind of going to be a little rant style podcast where whatever we want to discuss, there's no schedule, it's just talk about whatever comes up. So what do you want to start it off with? You want to start with NFL, college? How do you want to do this?
Well, I say we pick up where we were talking right before we started the podcast, before we went live. BYU scheduled a big game this week, but I think the bigger headline is that they're sitting at right outside of the top 10, which to me is just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, to me, I don't even think crazy is the word. I think it's more disrespectful, if anything. BYU's 9-0, and it seems like every time we talk about them, they are winning a game by 30 or 40 points. Their last one, they won by 52. The one before that, they won by 44. 34. And that was against a ranked opponent. And we talked about it as soon as the first rankings came out 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, rather. BYU was disrespected. I believe they were 14 in the first one, and they only moved up one spot this week. To me, it's just there's so many teams that are in front of them that aren't deserving to be in front of them. Now, you can make the case that they haven't played anybody, but that's not their fault. Like, they had to. I don't know exactly what their schedule was before all the COVID stuff happened, but I'm pretty sure they had a couple big games lined up that they didn't get to play because of all the in-conference rules and whatnot. So it kind of screwed them in that sense. But where do you think they should end up in the top 10? Like, where do you have them in yours?
In my top 10, I have them sitting at 7. Right there with, I have Cincinnati actually at 7, I'm sorry, and BYU is at 8. I've got them ahead of Georgia. Iowa State, we just got done talking about them. They had a big win last week. And, Miami's only lost that one game to Clemson, but still, I'm not on the Miami train. And then I think we talked about earlier in the week, Indiana losing their quarterback, correct?
Yeah, Michael Penix is out for the year with a torn ACL.
Yeah, so I don't look for them to stay where they are. They might. But going back to BYU, yeah, it's crazy. It's disrespectful. Granted, they're not playing the schedule that everybody's playing, but, we were talking about the other day, it's kind of the same scenario. We were talking about if Oregon were to make the playoff, they would have to win every game by, like, decent margin. You know what I'm saying? Like, that would be the only possible way that they could win or get in the playoff.
Yeah, I'm trying to find what their original schedule was, and what I'm looking at here has Houston. No, that's not right.
While you're looking at that, I'll finish what I was saying was,
Okay.
BYU, they're not playing the teams that Alabama's playing or Notre Dame or Clemson, whoever. But at the same time, they're winning their games by a good deal of points. I mean, you just got done talking about it. And to be sitting at 13 at 9-0, that's just it's kind of hard to just wrap your head around. I can't really think of a logical explanation of why that's happening to them.
Yeah, if you break it down, they have a top 10 offense and a top 10 total defense, which is there's only two other teams that have both of those, and that's Clemson and Notre Dame. So it's not like they're playing, terrible teams. Like they're playing really, really good football, and I think that's something that's really overlooked here. Because it's not easy to just go out and drop 66 on anybody. It don't really matter who you're playing. But so I was able to find what I believe is their original schedule broken down into two parts. Okay, so they had Utah, Michigan State, Arizona State, Minnesota, Missouri, Utah State, Houston, Northern Illinois, Boise State, San Diego State, Northern Alabama, and Stanford. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 50% of their games was against Power 5 teams. And if you ask me, they probably would beat Utah, would beat Michigan State, beat Arizona State, beat Minnesota with the way they're looking this year. They would beat Missouri and probably beat Stanford. Now, I could see them slipping up and losing one of these games, but I think even if they played their original schedule, you're looking at a 12-0, 11-0, or 11-1 BYU team.
Yeah, I agree with you. After seeing Michigan State the last few weeks, I think looking at that schedule before the COVID rearranging of everybody's schedule, the only two teams I think that maybe three teams, but two for sure that I think they would struggle with would be Minnesota and Missouri. The only reason I think one of those games, like if they were to play Missouri, it'd just be a shootout. But looking at that schedule, they could still be sitting at one loss, possibly even undefeated. So back to their schedule now, I looking at the top 10, like I know that they could beat three of those teams.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. And I mean, when you break down the we'll say top 12, they're really kind of, and we've touched on this before, there's like different tiers of teams. So like top 3, you have Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State playing above everybody. Don't really matter. Clemson has that loss. You kind of get rid of it. Ohio State's talked down on because they haven't played anybody this year, just like BYU hasn't. But they're in a Big Ten that just sucks this year. That's the way it is. They're still a tier above everyone when it comes to their program. Next, you have Notre Dame, Texas, and Florida. So that's your top 6 right there. And then after that, I think you could put Cincinnati, BYU, Iowa State, maybe Oklahoma. They struggled to start the year, but they're kind of on cruise right now. That's your next kind of tier 3. So, I mean, that kind of rounds out your top 10.
Right.
And then after that, it's just anybody can beat anybody. So I agree with you. I think BYU, okay, they're at 13. I think the only teams outside the top 6 that could beat them would be Cincinnati and Iowa State. And, I'm excited. I think I told you the other day that Cincinnati and BYU had a possibility of playing this weekend too, because both of them are byes. And it turns out, they're playing Coastal Carolina tomorrow or whatever, which is fine too. But I think I would have rather seen BYU and Cincy play. Now, I don't know why that didn't come to fruition or anything. But yeah, I agree with you. I think there's maybe 2 teams in 6 through 12 that could beat Indiana or BYU. And Indiana, Miami, Georgia, I don't see them beating BYU. It don't matter when they play. BYU's so good as any team, anytime, any place, and they have a good case to be making that kind of trash talk, if you will.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said about the teams they could beat. I was sitting there, excuse me, I was sitting there thinking about it while you were talking. They could beat Georgia. Iowa State would definitely be sitting at that 7 through about 11 spot in the rankings. Iowa State's the toughest team that they would play. They would beat Georgia, beat Miami, beat Oklahoma. But I would have loved to have seen the Cincinnati BYU game. I think that would have been a game if they had won that could have pushed them over that 5-6 Texas A&M Florida schedule for both teams. If Cincinnati were to win, I think they would jump to maybe the 5 or 6 spot. But they scheduled a good one. I think CCU, that's going to be, they're sitting at 9-0 as well. I don't think they're a top 12 team, but they are good. I think they're better than what they're sitting at right now at 18. But we just talked about it before we went live. I'm looking forward to this game more than any of them. Any game scheduled this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you look at Coastal Carolina. I don't know exactly when they jumped to Division One. Like technically they're technically FBS now. I don't know when they made that jump, but FCS the past couple of years, 2012 they lost in the second round. 2013 they lost to North Dakota State. 2014 they lost to North Dakota State. In 2015 they lost to the Citadel, which all in all, Citadel's not a bad team. They're a triple option team. They play good football as well. So just looking at where they've came from the past couple of years to make that jump and then have this success in the FBS is pretty impressive. Like you said, I don't know if they are number 18 worthy. I could see them, again, it's kind of the same thing as BYU. I could see them beating Indiana. Now, this may be a different story if Michael Penix isn't out, but I could see them beating Georgia. I could see them beating Miami. Possibly Northwestern and North Carolina. Now, there's a couple teams, in the mix of those that I don't think they would. I think they would struggle with, like Oklahoma State. It would be a shootout. Stopping Cincinnati's offense would be tough, but there's a couple teams out there that don't really have high-powered offenses, and I think Coastal Carolina's defense is good enough to make it a good game, which is why I'm so excited about tomorrow, because you have BYU who plays really well on both sides of the ball, and you have Coastal Carolina who has a offense that I've watched a lot of tape on recently because of all the different things that they've done offensively this season. Lots of wrinkles, and then they have a really good stout defense too.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think they're worthy of the 16 spot. I think they're better than North Carolina. Wisconsin, I don't think anybody's seen enough out of them. I think that Wisconsin would ultimately win that game, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what you've done so far, and they've won 9 straight games. So I think they're worthy of that 15, 16, possibly even 14 spot. But nonetheless, I think going on and to that game, I think BYU is going to win this one. I think they're going to win this one by a pretty good cushion. By cushion, I mean 12 to about 16 points.
Yeah, I think the BYU's a 10.5 point favorite right now. And the betting side of me is really, really wanting to take Coastal Carolina at plus 10.5 because something tells me that they score a late touchdown or a late field goal or something to keep it close to that. But I agree with you. I do think BYU's offense, if they I think they're going to treat this as a statement game because they've been disrespected 2 weeks in a row. The last game of the season was not going to help them out either, which is why I think I saw that tweet or the rumor about them playing Cincinnati. And I was like, they're trying to do something to make a name for themselves, to make a case. Maybe, they're probably not going to make the playoffs. A lot would have to happen to make them or to get them in the playoffs. But I think they're shooting for a New Year's Six Bowl. And I think that's what they're trying to do here all in all. So I think this is just a statement game from them. They play pissed off the entire time. They're, coming for blood. I think Zach Wilson's going to play out of his mind, throw for 300 yards, really efficient. I'm looking at Coastal Carolina's defense right now. They are 10th in points per game, 14th in yards per game, 7th in third down conversions, and 92nd. I think that's good in terms of what this is. So that would be top 30 in the NCAA in red zone scoring percentage. So, it's BYU's offense versus CCU's defense. I think this is going to be a legendary game that we're talking about probably through the offseason.
Yeah, and going on to add on what you were talking about, Coastal Carolina's offense, how electrifying it's been to watch, how fun it's been to watch, and how, successful they have been through their 9 games. I think it's going to be one of those where they come out and we see a bunch of things that we haven't seen because how many days do you think that they've had to prepare for each other? 4 maybe?
I believe
I'm sure they knew, like the coaches knew that they were going to play before the public knew. So I'm going to
Yeah,
say 4 or 5 days.
if I'm not mistaken, let's see, today's Friday. I think it was announced on, what was it, yesterday morning, Wednesday night, maybe?
I think it was
Um,
Wednesday night.
so if I'm not mistaken, I think Liberty canceled everything on Tuesday and then decided on Wednesday that they were not um, going to play the rest of the season due to COVID or whatever. Um, so if I had to guess, they've probably been talking since Tuesday. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're looking at 4 days to prepare for each other.
So in saying that, like I'm thinking it's going to be one of those games where CCU comes out and gets up maybe 10, 13 points on a couple big plays, maybe some 45 to 60-yard plays that they wind up scoring on, something to that nature. But ultimately, I think BYU's defense is going to step up, especially second half. I think we're going to see a big second half out of BYU's defense, which I think that's going to be the difference in the game. Because both teams can throw. Both teams are going to spread the field. They're going to run for 5 to 12 yards a play. They're going to throw for 3 to 12 yards and occasionally 20 plus.
Yeah, I'm looking at total offense and total defense right now. BYU is number 5 in points per game. Coastal Carolina is number 6. BYU is number 8 in total defense. Coastal Carolina was number 16. BYU is number 8 in total defense, and Coastal Carolina is number 17 in total defense. So you could make a strong case for this game being either a high point shootout or a really good defensive game. That's kind of,
Yeah.
I don't want to say low scoring. You're looking at like 50 point total, 60 point maybe. But I wouldn't be surprised for it to go either way. But yeah.
And yeah, this is one of those games that could go 5 different ways. You could see BYU win by 30. You could see CCU win by 15, 20 points. You could see a low scoring game with a lot of turnovers, or you could see a game with 10 touchdowns combined. You really don't know because, like I said, they don't typically, play teams to. BYU does not play a team like CCU. Looking at their schedule, I don't know a team that even has an offense as powerful as CCU's. Do you see any?
Say that first part again. Looking at BYU's schedule, if they've played a team that's as powerful as,
Yeah, like in terms of like scoring points and spreading the field.
you could say Houston.
Yeah, Houston. I thought BYU maybe, but no.
Yeah,
I mean Boise State.
Yeah, I think Boise. If I'm not, let me look at that real quick. I want to say their quarterback got hurt. Boise State's.
Yeah, that was their backup quarterback.
Yeah, so I think that plays a factor into it. So yeah, I think the only two teams that even have compared are Houston and Boise State, where Boise State scores 17 and Houston scores 26. So
Nonetheless, they haven't seen a team that's going to throw the ball about 30, 35 times a game like CCU does.
yeah, absolutely. And CCU has a really good run game too. So it's going to be fun, man. I don't even know what time that game is. Let's see here.
I was about to say, do you know what time it is?
4:30. 4:30 Central, so 5:30 Eastern, wherever you're at. In South Carolina. Dang, man, if I had that wedding, that may be worth the drive to go to. How far is that? Brooks Stadium in South Carolina. I'm going to look that up real quick.
So yeah, Coastal Carolina, I'm going to imagine it's probably about 6, 7 plus hours.
Yeah, 7 hours. That's still not bad, though. I mean, it's about the same as going to basically
go to New
Charlotte.
Orleans.
Yeah, Charlotte, North Carolina, New Orleans. Yeah.
New Orleans might be a little bit longer of a trip. Nonetheless, though, I've made the trip before, so would definitely do it for this game.
Absolutely, it'd be worth it, 100%. But anyway, that's a 20-minute preview of BYU and Coastal Carolina, so we'll
you can definitely tell what we're most excited about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But anyway, we'll talk about who Coastal Carolina was supposed to play in Liberty, and this it'll get me into another topic that I think would be good to discuss here. So Liberty ends up not being able to play due to COVID cases, or not having enough scholarship people, whatever. This kind of takes you to where it's the opposite of what a high-profile analyst said about Michigan the other day. So Liberty is forced to opt out due to actual health concerns. Michigan, on the other hand, their game this week, I believe, was postponed, correct? And it was supposed to be their last home game, which means this is the first time in a while that Michigan will go winless at home during the college football season.
That doesn't even sound right.
Yeah. And so, first off, I'll ask you, did you see what Kirk Herbstreit had to say on the college football playoff show on Tuesday?
I did not.
So basically, they're going around talking about COVID in the games. More or less, they're making the case for Ohio State possibly not being the Big Ten champion, sitting at like 5-0. Do they make the playoffs? Kirk Herbstreit said that Michigan has the power to basically fake sick and call off the game, saying that they're not going to be able to play it, to screw over Ohio State. And Kirk was basically saying like he wouldn't put it past him to do it. Now, if I'm not wrong, Kirk played at Ohio State, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was about to say he has a little bit of bias in him, but
yeah. So he was under. Oh, I agree 100%. Yeah, I don't think Michigan's in a stable enough position right now to go lose by 50 to Ohio State, especially after the year they've had. They had their game canceled this weekend. Who's to say they don't cancel it next weekend versus Ohio State?
This may be the best play call Jim Harbaugh has possibly organized all season to save his career.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think he should be there.
Conspiracy-wise.
I think if he don't get fired this year, due to the COVID crap, he's going to have to win like his first 4 games in a row next year, and if he doesn't, then I think he's fired before midseason.
Yep.
Because, I mean,
let's see.
There's
they
no
haven't
way.
released schedules for next year, have they?
Some teams probably have.
Like probably their home openers.
Yeah, you can probably look at their non-conference schedule. I don't think their conference schedule has been released yet.
We'll pull this. Yeah, it's just their conference schedule.
But anyway, I mean, I could see it happening, and that'll get me into. There's like 2 things I want to talk about off of this. Would you put Ohio State in the playoffs if they finish? So they're 4-0 right now. They're playing this weekend against Michigan State. If they don't play next weekend against Michigan, you're looking at a 5-0 Ohio State team. Are you confident in saying that's one of the top 4 teams in the country?
It's tough to say. This is the only way that I think they don't get in. If they don't play that game next week, this is the only way I think they don't get in, is if Florida beats Alabama in the SEC championship. I think Alabama will take that 4 spot or 3 spot, and Florida will take the 4 spot, or vice versa. And that'll be the only way that Ohio State doesn't get in. Well, I don't know. Will Clemson and Notre Dame play each other again?
See, that's the other thing I was wanting to talk about too. You saw where the ACC commissioner is not letting Clemson and Notre Dame play next week, right? They're waiting until the 19th to play their. So they're both supposed to have a makeup game next week, and then they play the 19th for the championship. But the ACC commissioner is like, we're not going to force you to play that game. You've kind of solidified yourself in the playoff, in the ACC championship. We're not going to force you to play that extra game when it's just a makeup game all in all anyway. So they will play each other again, but then you have Alabama and Florida who's in the same scenario. They've solidified themselves as the SEC championship game. They're both playing a makeup game to an extent next week.
Yep.
If you're Greg Sankey, do you force them to play it too? Like, I think if Ohio State is number 4 on December 20th, the day of the Sunday morning, the college football selection show, and you have 4 one-loss teams in front of them, Alabama, Florida, Clemson, Notre Dame, which would mean Florida beat Alabama, Clemson beats Notre Dame. You have 4 one-loss teams in front of them. I think those 4 get in 100%.
So you're thinking a 2 SEC, 2 ACC school playoff
if Florida beats Alabama. Now, if Florida loses, I think they're out just because they've lost to Texas A&M and Alabama. I think if Notre Dame beats Clemson again, then Clemson's out. Because I think
Oh, absolutely.
Notre
Yeah.
Dame's that would be Notre Dame proving that you can't beat us with your quarterback and you couldn't beat us without him.
Yeah.
So why should you be in the college football playoff? So
That's what I was
Clemson's in a
about.
must-win scenario, and so is Florida.
That's what I was about to say. I think Notre Dame. I I don't think they're better than Florida, but I think Notre Dame has also proved that they are worthy of that top 4 spot just because they have beat Clemson. And yes, it was without their quarterback, but their backup quarterback is not bad. I mean, he's going to be a great football player. He's going to play pro ball. So if you really put that in perspective, I think Notre Dame deserves that top 4 spot. Do I think Florida or Texas A&M could beat them? Possibly. Um, but back to Ohio State, I think the only way they don't get in is if Clemson and Notre Dame do not play next week, and then Florida beats Alabama.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, Clemson and Florida are both in must-win scenarios, and the thing that's going to screw Ohio State is they're going to be 5-0 after Saturday. If they don't play Michigan next weekend for whatever reason, then you're looking at a possibility where they don't even make the Big Ten championship game. So then you have Wisconsin, who is 16, will play, I believe, Northwestern, who is 14. Well, hell, Wisconsin can't make it either, because Wisconsin's only played 3 games and they only have 2. Wisconsin's out because they haven't played 6 games.
Yeah, there's
Northwestern,
Go ahead.
Northwestern and Indiana are in by games played, but Indiana don't have their quarterback, so I don't know, man. It's a real
Chaos.
possibility that Ohio State doesn't get in the playoffs just because they don't play 6 games and don't go to the Big Ten championship.
And think about this too. Let me ask you this: you're number 7, Cincinnati. You're sitting there, behind Texas A&M and Florida. Okay, so if you're Cincinnati, you want Notre Dame and Clemson to play, and you want Notre Dame to win, and you want Alabama and Florida to play, and you want Alabama to win, and you have to win out. Will they play a conference championship?
I don't think so. They
No, I mean
play
they're still 8. They're still 8-0.
Well, yeah, they play Tulsa, who's ranked next weekend. That'll be their third
Yeah,
ranked win if you include Army. They're I don't know if the American Conference will give them the conference championship or they have to play it. I think they do have to play it because I think Memphis and UCF played in that conference championship last year.
yeah.
So they
So
will. I think they will have to play a conference championship game.
so for their sake, you need that conference championship, I think, and then adding on what I just said, Alabama wins, and then Clemson Notre Dame play and Notre Dame wins. If that happens, I think you could see Cincinnati possibly taking that 4 spot. Depends on. I think Texas A&M could slip up and lose this week. That's depending on their season because who's to say that they're not a better team than Cincinnati? But I think Cincinnati has proved themselves more. That's if they win the conference championship and next week.
Yeah, I think so. We're saying hypothetical here.
Yeah.
Clemson's out, Florida's out. You're looking at it would be 10-0 or 11-0 Alabama, 11-0 Notre Dame. We'll say 6-0, 7-0 Ohio State. We'll put them in.
Yep.
You're looking between 8-1 Texas A&M and 10-0 Cincinnati. Who?
Guess
So
it would
you,
depend on how much they win by.
yeah, I think that, and I think it depends on how Texas A&M plays this week against Auburn and next week against Tennessee. It's like you said, they do have to win out though.
This is why there needs to be a 16 playoff top 2 teams first week bye. For this exact reason, because Texas A&M gets in at the 4 spot, Alabama at the 1 spot, Alabama's going to beat them. Texas A&M's offense is not going to outshoot Alabama's, nor is Texas A&M's offense going to put up enough points on Alabama's defense to even come close. They would like everybody on Alabama's offense would have to have the worst game possible. So, I don't think Cincinnati beats Alabama either, but you have already seen Alabama and Texas A&M play. And teams like Cincinnati, and in recent years, you see those teams slip up, and like Utah several years ago slipped up. One of those teams nobody thought. Oklahoma, before their prime started, beat Alabama with a good football team. I think you could run into one of those situations. Do I think Alabama wins? Yes. Do I think Texas A&M's better than Cincinnati? I don't know, but I know for sure that Alabama's better than Texas A&M. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. And I think while you were talking, this kind of popped in my mind. The biggest thing with watched a special on the other day that was talking about the BCS and the transition to the playoffs and all that went into that and everything. And quick note: did you know that the government had a meeting discussing the BCS the way it was set up?
Like the playoffs?
No, like in 2005 there was a controversy or 2004 technically, Auburn and USC being the champion. The BCS gave it to USC, but I think the coaches poll gave it to, or the AP poll gave it to Auburn. The United States government, it may have been the Supreme Court or something, but there was a hearing to discuss the state of the BCS. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
I didn't either.
I was 2004 Auburn team, side note, was better than the 2010 Auburn team.
Oh, I agree, 100%. Absolutely.
That's the best team Auburn's had in a very, long time. But anyways, back to
but anyway, so one thing that they were talking about in that was tradition, was keeping the bowl game and all that. And all in all, the tradition means the bowl games, the companies still get their money. Well, the way I'm looking at it, a 16 playoff would allow you to keep the New Year's Six bowl games, and if anything, increase the value of the other two that aren't in rotation year in and year out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like you're looking at right now, you have a 3-game playoff, or you're utilizing 2 bowls plus the national championship. If you add 2 more teams, which is 2 buys, 2 more games, you're doubling that number to where only 2 bowl games matter on New Year's Day, 4 games matter on New Year's Day. So, in my opinion, I think 16 playoff is perfect. And it's like you said, Texas A&M is not going to beat Alabama again. I think even if you put Cincinnati at the 4, they're not going to beat Alabama again. You put Florida at the 4 for whatever reason, they lost Alabama in the SEC championship. No one's going to want to see that game again. And then, like you said, Clemson and Notre Dame. Do they really want to see Clemson Notre Dame Part 3 at 2 and 3, or however that shapes up? So, I think we touched on this last time we talked. It was like a Cincy at 6 versus Notre Dame, and then Texas A&M versus Clemson. Those would be 2 really good games, and then you feel more confident, if anything, headed into the actual semifinal games.
Yeah. Because if Clemson, comes back and beats Notre Dame, if you're talking in a 16 playoff scenario, you're going to think Alabama beats Florida, so knocks Florida out. You would be seeing Cincinnati take that 6 spot, which I think, that just makes sense. I think 8 is too big right now, especially with the way the conference scheduling and non-conference scheduling set up, not in reference to how COVID has treated everything, but in a normal college football season, you would see Cincinnati take the 6th spot. That just makes sense to me. 6 teams just makes perfect sense because you want to reward. It's just like, you don't want to see too many playoff teams. I think in college you just don't. But there's so many teams worthy of that 3 to 6 spot that I think it's worth saying, okay, the top 2 teams can get a bye because usually, 8 or 9 times out of 10, the top 2 teams every year in college football are like clear top 2 teams. You know what I'm saying? Like they're either undefeated or their 1 loss is to a top 7 team.
Yeah, or their 1 loss is
off 3 points, some crazy shit like that.
Or look at Texas A&M. Their 1 loss is to the number 1 team in the nation. So
yeah, in a 16 playoff they would deserve to make that because if they beat Auburn and do they play the week after or they don't have a makeup game, do they?
Auburn,
Texas A&M.
Yeah, they play Tennessee next week.
Okay, well, they're going to beat Tennessee. Auburn's really the only game you would be looking at. So they win those 2. Obviously, they're a top 6 team. It would just make perfect sense. But, I understand both sides, though. Yeah. I really do.
Well, I'll ask you this. If you go to the 16 playoff, do you go where the 5 conference champions automatically get in? I was discussing this yesterday in oddly enough, an NCAA Football 14 group chat on Facebook. Um, some guy was talking about an 18 playoff with the five Power Five guys automatically getting in. I was like, no, no way in hell all Power Five teams deserve to get in.
Yeah.
But what do you think? I mean, do you agree with that?
No, I don't think all Power Five teams deserve to get in, but I do think in a normal scheduling, your SEC, ACC, Big 12, and Pac 12 winners are all going to be one two-loss team minimum, and a two-loss team wouldn't make the playoffs. But let's just say they're all one loss and less. A couple of them undefeated, and then the rest are one-loss teams. That'd be the only scenario I think all would get in if they win their conference. But if you run into a two-win or a two-loss Oregon team that wins the Pac-12, and then you're talking about a Cincinnati team that didn't play the schedule, but they're sitting at 11, 12 and 0, 11 and 1 conference championship. I think they deserve that spot. So no, I don't think the conference champions, Power Five conferences, I don't think they deserve to be in. In that scenario, I think it would just boil down to a situation like this: like who is beat who is won by what. Top 25 wins, credible wins, all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
I agree with you. I don't think Power Five just should make it.
yeah. Because if you look at the top six, so Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio State, Texas A&M, Florida. There are 3 losses in those 6 teams. Clemson's lost to number 2, Texas A&M's lost to number 1, and Florida's lost to number 5. You throw in Georgia, there are 5 losses amongst the top 8 teams. The 3 I just mentioned, Georgia's lost to number 1, and Georgia's lost to number 6. So even then, now get rid of the fact that Georgia's not that good of a football team, especially what they've been in the past. But you're still looking at the same scenario where the top 6 teams have only lost to each other, and the top 8 teams have only lost to each other.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I'm all for expanding the playoff, but like you said, I think 8 teams is just a little bit too much.
Yep. I definitely agree. And, going way back to the start of the podcast, I'd put all the money I had right now on BYU as a top 6 team. If, like by the end of the season, if, Alabama, Florida play, Alabama wins, and then Clemson, Notre Dame plays, and Notre Dame wins, I think BYU is a top 6 team if there were a 6-team playoff. But nonetheless, dreams, wishes, we can talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to say whether Cincinnati or BYU gets in if you had to choose between those two. I'd probably go with BYU just because I think their defense is better than Cincinnati's is. However, Cincinnati's offense is stupid. So I think the committee would put Cincinnati in over BYU, but I would much rather see BYU get in instead of Cincinnati. So,
if BYU and Cincinnati would have played this week, and Cincinnati would have won and then continued to win out, and then your typical Alabama beats Florida, you could possibly see them jump in Ohio State if that were to happen.
I would do it.
But, I think Cincinnati not playing this week, they're not playing, right? You said they had a bye.
Yeah, their Temple game got canceled.
Yeah, okay. I was about to say they did have one. But still, not playing this week, I think that's really going to hurt, and it's going to help BYU. I know they're playing CCU, but CCU, like we talked about, has been a great team. So BYU, I think, they're still sitting at 13, but I think they get the better end of the stick between those 2 teams.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And then, what's crazy, though, is there's more undefeated teams that we're not even talking about. You're looking at Coastal Carolina, who would be, what conference is that? Sun Belt. They're going to be Sun Belt champions they're still going to play UL Lafayette, which could go either way, in my opinion. But they could possibly be undefeated if they beat BYU. You're looking at Marshall, who is Conference USA champions, going to be. I don't see them getting beat by a 7-4 UTSA team. And Liberty. Well, Liberty's not undefeated anymore, but their only loss is to a Power 5 team by 1 point. So, even though Liberty's they're not even in the top 25, but I still think you can make a dang good case for them to be better than Tulsa, Washington, um,
North Carolina.
Iowa, North Carolina, UL Lafayette. Like, I don't know. It's just, let's see. I'm gonna look at the coaches poll real quick. Or sorry, the AP poll. North Carolina received votes to be in the. Yeah, North Carolina is number 17 in the college football playoff and not even in the top 25 in the AP poll. Buffalo is technically ranked 27th in the AP. San Jose State is like 30. So, I don't know. I think the AP poll is probably more realistic than the college football playoff.
Yeah, I would agree.
They have Cincy at 7, BYU 8, Miami, Indiana, Georgia at 11, Iowa State at 12. That I disagree with. But they have Coastal Carolina at 14, Marshall at 15. And then, yeah, they got Liberty at number 25. So, but yeah.
I would love to see Alabama and Notre Dame play in the championship, though.
Okay, I feel like this is going to be a hella long podcast, which is absolutely fine. Who beats Alabama right now? Because to me, it's their defense. I was thinking about this the other day. It's probably the best we've seen since 2016, in my opinion. I mean, this is
after the first 4 games.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, you got to think they didn't really get a true fall camp. They didn't get summer together. They didn't get the spring. Like they are 8-0 against nothing but SEC. So it's not like they played USC and then they had Western Kentucky and ECU the first 3 weeks like they normally have. They had Missouri, Georgia, and Ole Miss. Like, that's probably a really, really rough start. Probably the roughest start you could get, essentially, to start the year. And they're still sitting at 8-0, and their defense is only getting better. Offense is absolutely lights out. If you had to pick one team to beat Alabama, neutral field, whatever, who's it going to be?
It's definitely going to have to be between Clemson and Ohio State. I think had Ohio State played, 8 games so far, and they're sitting at 8-0, I think they would be the favorite. I think Clemson's going to be their toughest matchup, though, with Trevor Lawrence. I think that would be the only team that could beat them defensively. I don't think Ohio State's defense is as good as Clemson. That's the only reason I think Clemson would be the only team that could beat Alabama right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you look at it, and when Coker beat Clemson in the national championship, Derrick Henry was the running back. This is like tit for tat, identical offense to what we had in 2016, or it'd be 2015 technically, but the 2016 college football playoff. You had Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Jake Coker, Mac Jones. You had Kenyon Drake. You have Brian Robinson. You have good wide receivers. Like, the offenses are almost identical, and then, like I said a minute ago, the defense is probably the best we've seen since this defense. So
yeah, I agree. In the last 2 years, for sure, this has definitely been our best defense in terms of what they've done. To me, as biased as it sounds, I think it's obvious that they're the clear cut, best team in college football right now. I know Notre Dame's sitting at 9-0, but who's to say that if Trevor Lawrence does play, Clemson probably wins that game. I think it's still close, but I think there's enough experience behind Sunshine that they would have won that game. So nobody would have really been talking about Notre Dame. They would have been that one-loss team sitting right there with Texas A&M and Florida all holding hands. It would have been Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, the only 3 teams everybody was talking about. So right now, I think it's safe to say that Alabama is the clear-cut best team in the country, and I don't think anybody could beat them right now. And if Jalen Waddle comes back, I don't think anybody's going to beat them, period. But, like you said, it all relies, to me, on the defense. I think our offense is going to put up 30-plus on every team in the top 25. Every single team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like you said, if Trevor Lawrence plays that game, Notre Dame's not even topic of discussion right now.
Yeah.
Now they're a good team, but they're not the number 2 team in the country. They're more in
Yeah.
that 4 to 8 range with, like you said, Texas A&M, Florida, Cincinnati. Um, but yeah, well, I feel like we could talk college all day. You want to go to the NFL for a little bit, or you want to stay here?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
roll on. There's some good topics. NFL as well.
Pick whichever one you want to start with, and we'll kick off with that one.
Okay, well, I guess we can just go ahead and start off like we did last time. We start with our Super Bowl picks, or how we finished. I mean, college football. We'll just start with our Super Bowl favorites so far. Um, to me, man, after this past 3 weeks, I think the Steelers are the best team in the country. Is that safe to say?
I agree. I think, to me, the Chiefs are sitting at 10-1, and there's still a lot of people out there that don't think the Chiefs or don't think the Steelers could beat the Chiefs. I'd have to disagree with that because I think the Chiefs are just have this kind of talk about them that they can go out there and drop 40 any given Sunday like it's nothing. Like if they really actually tried, no one could touch them.
Yep.
And I'd have to disagree with that. They've looked good, but they haven't looked great. They haven't looked dominant. They haven't looked like you're like, all right, that's the AFC champion. Like Clemson or Pittsburgh's 11-0, and a lot of those are quote unquote sloppy wins, bad wins. A win's a win, especially in the NFL. It don't matter who you're playing against. You're playing against Triple Sticks and Trace McSorley 2 days ago, but you're still playing a damn good Ravens defense. Like, I think the Saints could potentially beat the Steelers just because their defense is kind of finding their groove. They've added Quan Alexander. The Saints defense to me is twice as good as what they were to start the year, which is why I said a couple weeks ago.
They would have to have Drew Brees. They would have to have Drew Brees.
Yeah, they'd have to be healthy on offense, but they have so many Pro Bowlers, so many weapons, and things like that. That again, I said a couple weeks ago, the Saints are my pick to win the Super Bowl, 100%, hands down. That's the only team I see beating the Steelers. A lot of people are going to say the Chiefs would beat them, and then they'd probably say the Saints, maybe Packers, probably. I don't know. But to me, Steelers, Chiefs, AFC champions, and then Saints, Packers in the Superdome in January. That's what I'm going with.
Saints, Packers. Ooh. So you think the Seahawks have fallen out of your top 2?
Yeah, the Seahawks.
In the
I think
NFC.
they're going to be better now that Jamal Adams is back and he's playing. He's not even playing defense, bro. He's just playing football. Like, he's just out there making plays, running around, having a good old time. And to me, that's fun. I love watching. The Seahawks defense is so much more fun to watch with Jamal Adams out there. But yeah, I do. I don't think the Saints could beat the Packers. The Seahawks could beat the Saints or the Packers. Mostly because of the Saints defense. And when Drew Brees gets back, I don't think the Saints have had all their weapons since week 2. Like Michael Thomas is out for a while, and then Emmanuel Sanders is out, and then Drew Brees is out when Michael Thomas comes back. So they're sitting at 9-2. Their defense is only getting better, and they're still yet to have all their offensive weapons. The Packers are the same kind of situation they had last year. I think last year they go 13-3, where they're losing games, but they're losing to quality opponents. They got railed by the Buccaneers. They lose to the Vikings when Dalvin Cook came back, and then they lose to the Colts, who's a different team every week. The Colts, to me, are one piece away from being the AFC South champions, I think. I think they're in the AFC South. Yeah. To me, they're one defensive piece away from beating the Tennessee Titans and running the AFC South for the next couple of years. Because Phillip Rivers is going to win you a division. I don't know if he can win you a Super Bowl, but the Colts they're better than 7-4 that their record shows. I mean, they've lost to the 1-10 Jacksonville Jaguars.
The AFC South's just without Will Fuller now. It's just Titans, Colts. Everybody else is irrelevant. But I'm with you, man. I think the Saints are the best NFC team right now, and I think once Drew Brees comes back, it will be. Especially the luck there. I think they would have won the Super Bowl had that play call against the Rams not happened. That's just personal opinion. Like I said, though, ultimately, I'm sticking by it. I think the Chiefs are going to repeat. But you know what my perfect Super Bowl matchup would be, and I think we could possibly see it this year, would be the Packers and the Chiefs.
I
I
would
would be so excited for that one.
I would like to see that, or I would like to see Saints Steelers. I don't want to see Saints Chiefs, and I don't want to see Packers Steelers. I would rather see the matchup you mentioned, or the Packers and the Steelers. I just feel like those would be the best games. Like I don't feel like the Packers and the Chiefs would be as good of a game as the Saints Steelers would. Regardless if they're the two best teams. Like you could say that's the Super Bowl matchup, but these aren't the two best teams in football. But I would much rather watch that game than watch the Packers and the Chiefs play.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to come down to those four teams, though. I think it'll be out of the NFC, Saints, Packers, and then Steelers, Chiefs. I'm not going to sleep on the Bills. The Bills are still a good football team. They're one of those teams, like you said, about the Colts, different every week. I think the Seahawks are my favorite bubble team for the conference championship out of both conferences. I think Seahawks have the best chance of making it compared to who's the third best team in the AFC and European? Probably Bills, Titans, Browns, maybe.
I don't think the
No.
Browns. I think the Browns are too
Yeah.
inconsistent. I would have to go Bills, Titans.
Yeah. Probably Bills ultimately. So I think Seahawks, are better in terms of that. But still think the Chiefs are going to repeat. I think the Steelers right now are playing the best football, especially defensively, which has been incredible to watch because you don't get to see that, that much anymore. Just a defense that makes that many plays, that forces that many turnovers. Seahawks defense is just too weak to me. Even when Jamal Adams back, I think they still give up too much in the passing game. But back to the Super Bowl, I don't know. I need to see Aaron Rodgers in a Super Bowl one more time before he retires. Just one more time.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think he finishes out with Green Bay?
Yeah, I think they would be. Well, I guess it would be his choice if he left because it would be really stupid if the Packers let him go.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
I'd like to see him retire as Green Bay Packer. I don't know if he, to Packers fans, true Packers fans, I don't know if he's, what Brett Favre was to them or whoever else before. But I will say this: since I've been watching football, Aaron Rodgers has been just the clear-cut, most pure quarterback I've ever seen.
The best quarterback in football, but way better than Tom Brady.
Yeah, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to finish up being what people consider the greatest of all time, just because that he's like the Steph Curry of football. He's probably the most fun quarterback to watch in the league. If you're just a typical watch Sunday football every day, you don't really break it down like you and I do. Patrick Mahomes has just got that Steph Curry vibe to him, I guess you could say. And man, is he freaking good. He's just. Did you see where Tyreek Hill said that when they drafted him, they thought that he was gonna be terrible. He's gonna be trash.
Yeah, he was that first week. I was like, man, this kid's trash. Yeah, that was awesome. But yeah, to answer your question, or to get back to what we were talking about a minute ago with the playoff picture and stuff, the AFC right now is Steelers, Chiefs, Titans, Bills, Browns, Dolphins, Colts. I don't looking at that. So you got the Colts and the Chiefs. I could see that being a closer game than what people are expecting, but I don't think that's going to be I don't see the Colts beating the Chiefs. Next, you have Dolphins, Titans, who the Dolphins have a good defense, so I think the Dolphins match up well with the Titans' offense in that sense, but I still don't think the Miami Dolphins could beat the Tennessee Titans in a playoff game because Derrick Henry is just too good.
Yeah.
Browns, Bills, I could see that being a shootout, but I don't think the Browns can keep pace with Josh Allen if he plays well. On the flip side of that, in the NFC, you've got Saints, Seahawks, Packers, somehow the Giants, Rams, Bucks, Cardinals. Well, we've already seen what happens when the Cardinals and the Seahawks play each other. Then you got the Buccaneers and the Packers, where the Buccaneers won by 28, like unheard of, kind of, to be, for the Packers to be the third best team in the tied for second, basically, in the NFC. And then the Rams and the Giants. Like, the NFC playoff picture is going to be so much more fun to watch than the AFC, in my opinion. Like, I think the AFC,
it usually is every year.
Yeah, I think the AFC would give you possibly more. I don't want to say upsets, or I'll say upsets in the sense that, like, the Dolphins might pull it out and beat the Titans. The Browns could somehow beat the Bills. But in the NFC, you're going to have, like, the Giants might be favored against the Rams because they're a better seed, but no one's going to expect the Giants to win that game. The Cardinals and the Seahawks. If the Seahawks defense don't really pick it up and the Cardinals offense keeps going the way they are and the way they have been, then no one's going to really be, like, questioning it if the Cardinals beat the Seahawks, even though on paper it would be labeled an upset. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I'm still not going to count out the Buccaneers as a conference championship player. I don't think they're a Super Bowl team yet. I don't know if they will be, but I don't think this is the year. Maybe next year. But you could see Tampa Bay slip into the conference championship.
Yeah, and what's going to be really fun to watch is I believe the NFL sets it up as a gauntlet style, right? So, like, the Saints would play the Cardinals if they win, and then they would play the Bucks after that. Like, they play the lowest seed, or the technically highest seed, to give them the easiest road to the Super Bowl. Which in turn would mean if the Seahawks win and Tampa Bay wins, then the Saints would play Tampa Bay in the second round. So I think that game right there would kind of determine who wins the NFC. Because I think if the Bucks could win 2 straight playoffs games, then they're probably going to be favorites to win the NFC in the championship, really no matter who they go against, because it would be the Giants, the Rams, or the Packers. But then you have the Bucks, who's coming off a win over. Well, no, that's wrong. The Buccaneers would have beat the Packers in the first round. So, but yeah,
the NFL needs Dak Prescott back because the NFC East right now is just a hot pile of garbage.
Yeah, the Giants do not deserve to be at number 4, much less even in the playoffs at all. I would much rather see the Vikings get in. But then you look, the Bears, they're garbage. Like, the Lions, not that great. Washington's not that great. Like, I would rather see the Falcons and Panthers get in over the Giants or the Bears. Like, Falcons are 13, Panthers are 14. And I would much rather see either of those teams get in the playoffs than half the teams in front of them. So,
yeah. You're looking, the NFC West, easily the best division in football, and the NFC East is easily the worst division in football. You cannot convince me that the 49ers are not better than the entire NFC East right now, even with George Kittle out. Got Deebo Samuel back, Raheem Mostert's back. He came back last week. I think he'll be full-fledged on touches this week. So we could see the 49ers slip up and take that spot over the Cardinals, possibly even the Rams. But I don't know if Nick Mullins has it in him. Got the team, but nonetheless, back to what I was saying, I don't think the 49ers could lose to anybody in the NFC East.
Yeah, we forget the 49ers because of all the injuries, but they were in the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah. And see, if everybody's healthy, I think the 49ers are probably sitting at that 2 spot in the NFC West, possibly 3.
Yeah, I agree. I think, actually, if everybody's healthy, the Cardinals are winning the NFC East, or the NFC West, because the Rams are just like the Colts, in my opinion. You get a different team with them every week. They lose by 11 to the Dolphins. They lose by 3 after scoring over 30 to the Bills. Then they beat the Seahawks the week after they get beat by the Dolphins, turn around and beat the Bucks right after that, and then lose to the 49ers. Like, it don't make sense what they're doing. They're winless against the 49ers all year. They beat the Cowboys by 3 in week 1, beat the Giants by 8, um, and then beat Washington by 20 and Philadelphia by 18. So, like, for them to be 7-4, they're just like the Colts, where they're either a lot better than their record shows, or they're actually a lot worse. They just happen to have some wins. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting, but
I don't even know if there's another division even close. I think the next two best conferences or divisions would have to be either the NFC South in terms of just, raw talent and what they do every week and who they beat. It's just all up in the air. Or the AFC North. I don't really know what every other conference is. Just you have a clear cut number one, or you have a top two, and those teams are 2 or 3 games ahead. So I don't know. It's going to be hectic either way.
I would say the AFC South and AFC North are the two best divisions in the AFC, because the Bengals are better than 2-8-1.
Yeah.
And then
the Texans
NFC,
are better than 4-7.
Absolutely, yeah. And then the NFC, you got the NFC South, who in my opinion is probably the best team, the best division top to bottom in the NFC. And then after that, you have to go with the NFC West. So,
yeah, if you're looking at Julio Jones healthy all season, Christian McCaffrey healthy all season, Teddy Bridgewater doesn't miss any games. NFC South and the NFC West are just crazy fun to watch in terms of getting to watch everybody play each other twice a year. But nonetheless, back to what I was saying. Ultimately, man, I really just want to see Packers and Chiefs. Like whatever the NFL gods got to do in the sky to make that happen, I hope it happens.
whatever kind of rain dance we're gonna get going.
But back to what you were saying though. If Drew Brees wins a Super Bowl, I'm going to be just as thrilled.
Well, instead of comparing divisions here, we'll talk about, this is something that you want to talk about, was the comparison between DK Metcalf and Calvin Johnson. I'll ask you first. It was your topic. Who's better? Who are you taking in a 1v1 or a one-on-one goal line, game on the line, fourth quarter tie game? Who would you rather have at wide receiver?
Right now, in this moment in time, I would take Megatron. Just because I've watched him play a career, I don't think there has been, outside of Julio Jones, I don't think, Jerry Rice, I don't think, and I guess you could even say Randy Moss, which is a different type of receiver. But in terms of just dominance and size, has anybody seen anybody like Megatron ever? I mean, freak of nature, size, was always being talked about, was always top 10 making plays, scoring touchdowns. But I will say this. I think DK Metcalf has the better upside in terms of by the end of his career, especially in terms of stats, having Russell at quarterback. You're playing on the Seahawks, who for the last 10 years, have been a top 6, top 7 team. I think, and even Metcalf's even in terms of rookie and sophomore seasons, Metcalf has better stats. But ultimately, I would take Megatron in, game time, goal line decision. But I am not going to be surprised if we see Metcalf become the next, icon in terms of just even Julio. I mean, because, Julio's probably got, 4 years tops left and just dominant, maybe 3. It's showing this year with injuries. So I think Metcalf is on the rise in terms of that big-bodied, just dominant receiver that you see go up for 50, 60-yard plays at least twice a game.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to me is you look at the quarterbacks. I think, it don't matter how good a receiver is, it comes down to who you have at quarterback. Like,
yeah,
Calvin Johnson is this dominant of a receiver, or was that dominant of a receiver, with a above average quarterback. And then you have Russell Wilson, who is slept on, underappreciated, just like Aaron Rodgers is. Aaron Rodgers,
top 4 quarterback in the league.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is arguably the best quarterback in football and has been for the past couple of years, where Russell Wilson hasn't even received an MVP vote, but is arguably like a top 2, top 3 MVP candidate over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at what Metcalf has done. In their first 27 games, he's got 15 more receptions on 10 less targets, over 200 more yards and 4 more touchdowns than Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
But
And I
Calvin
think that attests
Johnson.
more to Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I think it comes down to Russell Wilson versus, I believe, Matthew Stafford, and just the style of game. Like, this was 10, we'll say 10 years ago, give or take.
Within
Depending on
15 years, yeah.
Yeah, depending on what time frame, what year we're looking at here with Calvin Johnson. The beginning of his career was 2007. So you look at that style of football back then. There was a 300-yard passing game was unheard of. Like you're getting one or two a week. Now you're getting it
Yeah.
eight to 10 games per week. So
Yeah.
to me, I still think Calvin Johnson. Like Calvin Johnson, if he was still playing, I don't think we'd be having this conversation because he would only be 34 right now, 36.
I don't think he would even. I don't like to see him with somebody different than the Lions too.
Yeah, I changed my picture on the podcast. You're going to have to go fast forward to this moment and look at what I put as I took my camera off and put a picture up for this segment, and you just have to
Let's
look
see.
at it. Right here, I can screen share with you through Discord. I'll do that real quick. You should be able to see that now. Just go to the meeting room on your phone. But yeah, so
Yeah, the double team.
That's my answer right there. I think that
But
kind
then
of speaks for
again-
itself.
Yeah, that's 100% true. But then again, did Calvin Johnson have Tyler Lockett on the other side of the ball?
Yeah,
But-
that's a good point too. Let me look at that. Lines, stats.
Nonetheless, though,
2000
ultimately,
we'll
we
say
both agree
2008.
that Megatron is clear cut between the two. And I don't, I get why that's a comparison, but it's just I think that's just a hard comparison to make. Because DK Metcalf is clearly just faster. I mean, he is a lot faster than Calvin Johnson was. Calvin Johnson was fast, but he wasn't DK Metcalf fast. But Calvin Johnson again was just he just was he was Megatron. They gave him the nickname for a reason. The dude just like I don't even know how to explain. He just dominated. I was watching 2 or 3 games. Like when I saw the comparison, I was like, okay, I need to go refresh my memory on Megatron. So I went because we were both 7, 8, 9 years old when he was prime. 10 years old maybe.
Yeah, his rookie season was 2007. So
Yeah. So I had to go refresh my memory a little bit. But just watching him, like it was just, of course, it was this highlight video, so it was going to be key plays. But still, like he was a good route runner. He, like you said, he had above average QB. Not Russell Wilson, and still, literally every play on there, I would say at least it was a man with a shadow or it was a double team. Every single play.
yeah, I'm looking at his stats. He had let's see. 2015 was his last year. He played in 135 games. But I'm looking at his 2008 season, which is kind of the, Megatron's or DK Metcalf's in his second year, so we're going to look at Calvin Johnson's second year. And I'm looking at who he had on his team, okay? Tell me if you've ever heard of any of these guys, and I mean any of these guys. Kevin Smith, running back.
No.
Avion Kaysen, running back. Jerome Felton, that's a fullback. Sean McDonald, wide receiver. Michael Gaines, tight end. Mike Fury, tight end. Roy Williams, receiver. John Standiford, receiver. Casey Fitzsimmons, receiver. Kerry Colbert, Dan Campbell, Brandon Middleton, John Owens. Like, Calvin Johnson was the only good receiver on that Lions team. Especially given that that's basically when we were young and kind of I don't want to say we knew as much about football then as we do now, obviously, but I think it is kind of obvious that Calvin Johnson was that guy back then.
Yeah. I would love, there's a lot of players like that across all the sports platforms that you would love to see play now and playing then. But, we get what we get, so we appreciate it. DK Metcalf is DK Metcalf, and Megatron is Megatron.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you this. before we close it out here, who do you is we had last time we did a podcast, I believe we both had Russell Wilson as our MVP candidate, if not top two. So who do you think now through what are we in, week 13?
Yes, week
For the
13.
NFL?
Yep.
Yeah.
In
Who
terms
do
of
you have?
MVP,
Yeah.
I I think I'm gonna ride with the Aaron Rodgers train. You know, the at the same time, I think from a quarterback standpoint, I'm going with Aaron Rodgers. Just because I think his play does not reflect the Packers' record. Kind of like Russell Wilson, his play is above what the Seahawks are as a team as a whole. But I think a couple weeks ago I saw Aaron Rodgers only had like 3 touchdowns or 3 interceptions on the season, and 2 was in one game. So yeah, he's got 33 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 3,100 yards. 2 of those were in one game. So that just kind of tells you that you take out that one game, he's throwing for 30 and 31 and 2, I think, something like that, which is kind of insane. But then you go back, and this is the most touchdowns he's had in a season since 2016 when he threw for 40. So he's and that the most he's thrown in a career was 45 in 2011. So he very well could set his own record for passing touchdowns in a season with 5 games left, and he's finally got all his receivers back. So he did a couple games without Devontae Adams, without Aaron Jones, without Lazard, without Tanyan, like.
Couple games without Aaron Jones.
Yeah, so the stats that he's putting up just kind of speaks volumes to who he is and what kind of quarterback he is. Now, I think if you take away quarterbacks, I'm going with Derrick Henry just because the man's a freak. And his stats are only going to go up here the last couple weeks of the year because no one wants to tackle that guy. He's 6'3", 250, runs like a freight train. Like, no one wants to tackle Derrick Henry when it's 10 degrees outside, cold as hell, and the middle of December. So,
yeah, I'm with you. I think Derrick Henry's one of those guys that's earned the right to be talked about. But I'm with you. I think Aaron Rodgers is clear cut. And then I'm not going to sleep on Kyler Murray either. He has been, the last couple games have been kind of wishy-washy, but he has still managed to compete in the NFC West and do what he's done. I mean, they're sitting at potentially they could make a run for it. They've only lost 5 games. First year having DeAndre Hopkins, and he's been phenomenal for the team. His numbers alone just say that he's worthy of the talk of the MVP conversation. Kyler Murray is, but he's not going to be the MVP. And one other person that I was going to talk about is Dalvin Cook, one of those guys that literally he's a do-it-all person for the Vikings.
yeah, and it's kind of sad because, McCaffrey, I think he would be in the MVP conversation had he not missed as much time as he had, too. So
McCaffrey will probably be in the MVP conversation every year that he's healthy just because of his volume and his touches. He's going to have 150 scrimmage yards a game, minimum. That's what I'm going to say, 150, 125, 150 minimum.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think something I can't wait to do in the offseason is come back and kind of dissect these videos and segments and stuff and all the TikToks that I've made and stuff and, do a compilation of things we've said that we were right about. I think we called in, I know for a fact I called it in the first college podcast. I was like, Georgia sucks. I thought Georgia is not good this year. They're not going to win the NFC, whatever. Then I think when Georgia played against Arkansas and looked bad, Florida puts up 6 touchdowns in a game. I come out and say, all right, Florida's going to win the NFC or the SEC East before, we're in week 2. And just things like that. I can't wait to go back and see what all we've been right about. Just to kind of throw that out there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it will help out too. If somebody's consistently correct on their information, I always listen to them. I always tune back in, especially in terms of fantasy. So
so anyone can go and look up what other people have said and copy it and be right. But the fact that we do all this research from multiple people and then give our own opinions, it means more when we're correct. Now, if we're correct one time, don't mean anything. If we're correct consistently, that's what means something.
Yeah.
But to wrap it up, we'll get out of here with picks for this week. A couple of college football picks. We could do NFL, I guess, but I think there's a lot of games in NFL that aren't really worth. They're more one-sided, I think, this week in NFL. So we'll go with college. We'll start with the game tonight at 7:30, Kidd Brewer Stadium in North Carolina, Appalachian State versus Louisiana Lafayette, number 25. App State sitting at 8-1. I think Louisiana's 7-2. They've got lost to Marshall, who's undefeated, and lost to Coastal Carolina, who's undefeated. How do you see this game going? Who are you taking?
Louisiana Lafayette has the better record, but App State's one of those teams that they typically wind up playing on these Thursday, Friday, or 11 a.m. on Saturday games, and they look good most of the time. So for that reason, I'm going to take App State. It's a home game. They're sitting at 7-2. Don't have the firepower Lafayette has, but at the same time, they have proven to be a good team this year. Second in the conference in scoring, so defensive scored points allowed. So I'm taking App State this week.
Yeah, I'm with you. I actually misquoted that. App State has losses to Coastal Carolina and Marshall, but they held Marshall to 17, only lost by 10, and they've held Coastal Carolina to basically it was a close game to about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So I'm with you. I think App State's going to come out and play really well defensively. Louisiana dropped 70 last week, which is absolutely insane, which also kind of tells me that they're a little bit on cruise control. They probably didn't play in the second half last week, like their starters, second string at least. They definitely not in the fourth quarter. So I'm going to go with App State too. I like App State. They've played really well against two really good teams this year. Haven't been able to pull one out. I think this tonight's the night. So I'm going with App State as well. Moving on, we'll go with. I think you touched on this earlier. You see Auburn beating Texas A&M? You said it's a possibility. What do you think?
I think that there's a possibility. I think after last week with Alabama, I think personally that Texas A&M wins this game probably by about 2 scores. But it is one of those games that you could see Auburn winning.
Yeah, with Auburn's luck in Jordan Hare and Gus Malzahn's got to have a win to keep his job. I think this is the game this year that's gonna happen in his favor if he was to need that win. I guess we'll say that then.
Yeah, the typical Malzahn season. This is the win he's got to have.
Yeah, exactly. So Malzahn's playing for his job, and Texas A&M's playing for the college football playoff Saturday. A game I'm looking forward to though is Oklahoma State and TCU. I think that game's going to be really, really high scoring. TCU hasn't had that good of a season. They're sitting at 4-4, but they put up points on Iowa State. They put up points on Baylor, Texas Tech. They scored 60 against Kansas. So I like TCU's offense. They've kind of struggled earlier in the year, but as the seasons went on, TCU's kind of found their way. So I'm looking forward to this game in terms of offensive shootout standpoint. I don't think TCU's going to pull it out. I think Oklahoma State's going to keep their pace that they've set, and Brock Purdy's going to have a really good game, and Oklahoma State's going to win that one.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also going to be high scoring. I think Oklahoma State realizes what they have in front of them in terms of, conference championship and or New Year's Six bowls. So I think they continue to play like they want that to be achieved, so to speak. I think they win in a high-scoring game.
Yeah, there's a lot of Big 12 games this week that we can talk about right here. Another high-scoring game I think is going to be where's it at? I just passed it. I think Baylor. Who's Baylor play? Yeah, Oklahoma at Baylor on Saturday in Lincoln. Is that where Oklahoma's at? Oklahoma's in Lincoln, right?
I think so. No.
Norman. They're in Norman.
It's in Norman. Yeah. Norman.
Okay. But yeah, so Baylor, Oklahoma, I think that's going to be another high-scoring game. It's Saturday night. I think Oklahoma wins that one, but again, I think same scenario. I think the team that's going to win is going to win, but it's going to be a very, very high scoring game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think another one of those high scoring games that I'll probably flip on just to see in between commercials or something. But ultimately, I'm with you. I think they win the game.
Yeah, and I think that this will be the third high scoring game that we're going to point out about the Big 12: West Virginia and Iowa State. Why do I feel like we just talked about that?
Well, I think we were talking about a lot
We were
about
talking
Ohio
about
State.
we were talking about Oklahoma State. Yeah. Okay. So I was thinking. Yeah. All right. Anyway, Ohio State, West Virginia. That's going to be another really high scoring game. If it was in Morgantown, it was actually snowing there, and it was beautiful on Monday or Tuesday. It looked absolutely flawless. So I think this game would be a completely different. Like the turnout would be completely different, but with it being in Iowa, I'm going with Iowa State to uphold their number 9 ranking and beat West Virginia on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Iowa State's going to win with ease. I think it's one of those games that both teams look great in terms of statistics, passing yards, touchdowns, etc. But I think Iowa State wins, and it's one of those games that doesn't really get a lot of spotlight. But you know that Iowa State was clearly the better team, and so to speak, I guess. I don't know. I don't think, to me, West Virginia is one of those teams that could win that game. The more I think about it, looking at their schedule, recent weeks, a lot of big wins. So you could see that game going either way, but ultimately I'm going to take Iowa State.
Yeah. Looking forward to. I'm more looking forward to the Big 12 this week than anything, more than SEC, more than the Big 10 or anything like that. Let's see. Another game that I'm looking forward to, was looking forward to, was Wisconsin and Indiana, Mertz versus Penix. I'm assuming you're probably rolling with the Badgers on this one, with Penix being out. I'm going with Wisconsin. Do you agree, or do you think Indiana's somehow going to pull that one out?
Yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about the other day with Nebraska and Penn State. I think it's one of those games where the quarterback could come out and be hot, but ultimately, I think Wisconsin knows that, new quarterback's going to be playing. I think they get a lot of pass rush, limit the passing game, keep it on the ground, and everybody knows Wisconsin is known for running the football, and I think that is going to be their strong hand this week.
Yeah, Wisconsin's going to ground and pound, rely on their defense, which has always been pretty good the past couple of years. I'm going to take the under on that one. I don't even know what the over's set at, but I'm taking the under. And we will wrap it up with the showdown that everyone's looking forward to, probably the game of the week that everyone's been looking forward to for the past month. That only turned up 2 days ago, BYU and Coastal Carolina. I'm taking the Cougars. I'm taking Zach Wilson. I'm taking that defense in an ESPN Instant Classic. I'm taking BYU, and I absolutely cannot wait for 4:30 on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like we said earlier, most exciting game we're looking forward to. So I'm going to stick by that. Super excited for it. I'll be at the hunting camp this week, so I'll be watching on my phone with horrible connection. But nonetheless, I've already got it recorded. So first thing Sunday when I get home, that will be what I watch if connection falls through. But nonetheless, super excited for it. I'm taking BYU. I've already talked about it, already touched on it. I think this is one of those games that they're going to have any sort of shot of making the playoff or being in that top 7, top 8, New Year's 6 bowl range. I think this is it. So I think they win the game.
Yeah, I think there's a lot on the line this week. There's probably the conference championship for Coastal Carolina. BYU's only chance at making a case for the playoffs. Cincinnati don't have a game, so they will play next week in their chance to solidify. Indiana is going to drop. Wisconsin will move up. Iowa State could move up. But yeah, there's a couple of good games this weekend. Not really close games. It's more like just even match teams that could go either way. Didn't even touch on Kansas State and Texas. Memphis and Tulane is going to be a really good game. Arkansas and Missouri is going to be a good game. But yeah, so there's a lot of good games out there that are kind of going to be overlooked by a couple others. But yeah, it'll be a good weekend of college football for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for it. Nothing like Like last week, I was all nervous all day because of the Iron Bowl, but it turned out to be what I was hoping it would be. But this week, not as worried about it. Going to relax a little bit more and really focus on some games that I don't typically watch. So that's why I'm looking forward to this week.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's like you said, it's like the games that we don't normally get to watch. Like normally we don't really cut on Fox on Saturday morning to watch a game, and we definitely don't have on Fox on the afternoon to watch it. But I'm probably going to be flipping between Fox and whatever channel BYU's on. That would be ESPNU. So that's where my TV is going to be. Don't think I'll spend a lot of time on CBS until Saturday night when Alabama plays LSU. Who hopefully that game won't be close, but we'll see.
Shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be.
Well, that's going to wrap up episode 11 of the Point After Podcast. Like I said, we debuted our Christmas apparel earlier today. You can see it on the screen now. T-shirts $27, hoodies are $40, long sleeves are $32. That's shipping included. All you got to do is leave a comment that you would like to purchase, and we'll get in contact with you some way, somehow. Or if you're on Facebook or Twitter, just send us a message, and we will get that to you and get that purchase over with. We appreciate everyone tuning in, and hopefully we can be a little bit more consistent as this season wraps up. Let us know your guys' thoughts on the BYU Coastal Carolina game on tomorrow night. Obviously we're rocking with BYU. If you disagree, let us know why. And also NFL standpoint, if you need help with your fantasy football, let us know. We've helped a couple guys out this year. A couple guys have actually used this week after week after week, and it's proven successful for them. So if you need a couple testimonies to trust us, I have those if you need it. But as always, this is the Point After Podcast, and we will see you guys next week.